and I would like to welcome everybody to Friday in Focus. Super excited about today's presentation with Robert van Boxtel and Jelle Schrauwen. Doing my best.
Good enough.
And I'll let him say his own last name. And to talk about strategy for MedTech from a perspective of state-of-the-art in claims, which I think is a super interesting take on this, one that I haven't heard before. And I am going to turn it over to Robert and Jelle. Guys, hi, welcome.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you.
You pronounced my name pretty well, Robert van Boxtel. Jelle Schrauwen is a different name. It's a different pronunciation. It's something very Dutch. Is the first letters in his last name. Nevertheless, thank you for inviting us. Thank you also for rescheduling because there were some technical difficulties. Thank you also for being very honest on that, and thankfully we're now here. Yay! Okay, very good. I see some people already joining. So how do we recover from this? I'm sure we will, Sean. Let's do the introduction. I think that will be much more useful. So we are both working as consultants in Medical Device Project, which is a Dutch consultancy company. And the two of us were very high involvement in several elements that are linked towards the regulations, clinical risk management part of that. And we'd like to explain the concept to you. So so Jelle, maybe you can introduce yourself first.
Sure. Thank you at least as well, Sean, for inviting us. Currently, I'm a senior consultant in Medical Device Projects. Been doing that for 2.5 years now. Before that, I spent some time, 7 years, I believe, at a multinational, developing medical devices, bringing them to market. And I have a background in both engineering and a PhD in medical device technology. So, here I am.
Good.
Yeah.
Myself, I'm with the project for a little bit longer, like over 15 years now. And before that, I worked with a notified body. It's called DECRA these days. And also I did work in the industry, in plants, different roles, different manufacturing locations, lots of background. So biomedical devices. Yeah, that's my that's my education. So I think we have an interesting way to go forward on this hour that we have together. We'd like to bring you into a new concept that we think is very useful, independent of whether you need to meet regulations or not, independent of where you are in the world, and whatever your regulator wants, or the regulators of the areas where you bring your devices on the market. And so we like to explain to you the concept of state of the art, which is indeed a very broad concept that has been promoted by the IMDRF already for some time. And we'd like to make it a little bit more practical. And that's our approach here. And every now and then during the presentation, we'd like to stop and we'd like to ask you to provide us with some feedback. And first, I'll introduce the whole concept, and then Jelle will explain from regulatory and international IMDRF point of view what state of the art is and how you can apply it, and then we will move on a little bit further into further discussions on how that can be relevant for you. Maybe you come up during our presentation with some questions. So we take those breaks to look into whether the questions are posed on the chat or whether you have your hand raised or whatever. So if you can raise your hand, but you can also would like to be a little bit patient until we meet that point of break. Is that okay? Good. So state of the art, what is it? What should I do with it? Is it required? The best practice? What's the link with other company processes? And can I actually do something with it? And then we also would like to discuss claims, because what are claims? What do we mean with that? Well, basically, what is your product doing and how can you prove it? But we'll give a little different swing to it. Next, Jelle. So one of the things we'd like to take you along with is that there's a lot of strategy determination happening in companies, and you might be actively involved in one of the different layers. But you have to realize that all these different layers, they provide input to each other, and going from corporate perspective, top management strategy to business unit strategies. Startup typically are starting a little bit lower. You know, what market do I want to access, and where can I actually make some money on that part. Then we go down. You need to start thinking about your product portfolio, or you already have a product portfolio. Also, what are the claims that we are going to put in place on our devices? And if we don't have anything yet, how can we develop a device that is actually can be tested to also support these type of claims? So it's really a high level flow all the way down to design and development. But where does this SOTA now come in? And also, so we use the abbreviation state-of-the-art SOTA. Is it a burden, or should you see it as an opportunity? And here I would like to pause for the first time, and I'd like to open the floor a little bit. Do people here maybe can spend a little bit of back and forth discussion from your experience? How do you see state of the art, and are you using it in anywhere of these strategy locations? We'll go into definitions a little bit later. Are people out there who'd like to comment on their experience with SOTA and how they use it?
I personally struggled with this definition from the very beginning, because it really doesn't mean what it sounds like.
Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. Yeah, I see, Beat, you're responding also on the fact that notified bodies are asking for it, and it's everywhere. So how about we go to the everywhere? Jelle, if we move to the next one.
Yeah.
So the strategy, or actually I should say, the strategy for regulatory compliance is something that, from a European perspective, needs to be established. But also, even if you're not European, it doesn't matter where you are. If you have a company to drive, you need to strategize. You need to look into what areas, what markets am I going to approach, and what is therefore needed from regulatory perspective. So how are we going to determine these requirements, and how do they fit in with quality management system, and how do they fit in with the expectations of the user? Because do you actually know the expectations of your user, and how can you analyze their expectations? What is the field of play? What is the aim that I'm going to take? What am I going to hit when I throw my darts? And am I really going to be on spot there? So what is really happening in the world, in the clinical field where my devices are going to operate, or are going to be used? And it's a very close link towards the business strategy, meaning what are the opportunities from a business point of view in these specific markets and these specific applications of your device. So that's what we think is the link also towards the claims that can be made once you know your business, once you know where your device is going to operate. So from our view, without still knowing what SOTA exactly is, we're going to explain, no worries. You can use that information, and you should transfer your story and your thinking also towards strategizing and towards these management terminologies. You need to be able to strategically market your device and know how to get that access, and knowing what is the SOTA environment is that your device is going to be working in really helps also towards claim management. Okay, next. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
So let's go a little bit. I'm sorry, European, but there's some Europeans here also, thankfully. From a European perspective, so we did a little bit of accounting, and there's very interesting. We found out actually that there is not really a definition, and that's what Beat also so indicated on the chat. Nobody really knows what it is. There's no really a good
Oh.
definition. It's mentioned in the MDR, etc., etc. But Jelle is going to explain a little bit about what it means and how you can actually use it. So Jelle, the floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah, I already see some interesting things coming in onto the chat. I think it's quite relevant to this slide actually, but maybe that's for the rest of them, for the rest of the audience. Let's go over it. Because on the top you see quite interesting definitions from the IMDRF. You just learned from Robert that there is no actual definition in the MDR. But IMDRF talks about this definition in the text box here. It's interesting. You need to read it maybe 2-3 times before you completely grasp it. Right? It talks about a technical capability, maybe also what's accepted in clinical practice. Patients come along, and it all concerns consolidated findings in science, technology, and experience. Fair enough. But at least in our business, Robert and I, we often also speak to SMEs and startups, family business, if you will. If you then want to explain it, I think the MDCG guidance in 2026 is actually a little bit more useful, which says state of the art embodies what's currently and generally accepted as good practice in technology and medicine. And I already saw it coming in the chat as well. So I think someone in this audience knows the definition. I think that this one is a little bit more practical, right? So what is currently generally accepted as good practice in technology and medicine? Or if more simply put, if you're a physician, what devices do you have at your exposure to treat a patient? Can also be a nurse, of course, or maybe even the patient themselves if you're talking about over-the-counter products.
Yeah.
Well, we also sounded, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question here, Jelle. It says state of the art, but it also says state of the art with hyphens. So now we're getting a little bit confused on this here, and I see there's some comments in the chat also on that. Can we do we have something to say on this?
I think maybe you can explain a little bit more.
Okay, yeah. So we borrowed something from people that were very handy in trying to explain the difference between state of the art and state of the art with hyphens. And Christopher, thank you also for your point of view there, the noun and the adjective. Basically state of the art means that whatever is happening with your type of devices in the clinical or maybe even home environment, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the best of the best. And the state of the art with the hyphens typically refers, and that's also when you search on the in dictionaries, and I just have one example here. It really focuses on the definition of state of the art with the hyphens, meaning the best of the best or the highest or the whatever. So that's not what we are talking about here. So that also needs to be very clear. So we are talking about state of the art without the hyphens, as referred to in the MDR, and not the potentially not well written MDCG that we just put on the screen. So thanks again, Christopher, for your contribution there also. Okay, so let's go on.
Sorry. So next slide, indeed. Again, we're talking about a European perspective here because there it's mentioned. And I appreciate that. I think that most people on this call are very senior, but maybe just still, I want to mention that the MDR is a general regulatory framework, right? It needs to cover everything from a class 1 device, let's say a wheelchair or something like that, to a class 3 implantable. So this general framework also talks in general terminology like normal, relevant, sufficient, appropriate, acceptable. It doesn't really specify per device what you should or should not do, or what it should be capable of, right? So just an example, I'm not going to read the entire text box, of course, but this is in the text box you see Article 61 covering the clinical evaluation. And there you see some of these wordings already coming up as we read along, right? So it talks about, in bold, the normal conditions of the intended use of a device. So what is normal, right? How should you normally use that device? It talks about acceptability of the benefit-risk ratio with providing sufficient clinical evidence. So again, sufficient. And goes on also again about the level of clinical evidence that should be appropriate. So there's lots of, let's say, subjective wording, and it's then up to the manufacturer to give meaning to this. And basically the point here is that the state-of-the-art analysis can give a basis to this, right? So the MDR is actually riddled with this kind of wording. And maybe I think most people on the call also know MDR, you have 23 GSPRs or general safety and performance requirements, right? That your device should meet if relevant. And the first one in my mind is sort of like the umbrella GSPR. It's a big one. It says, okay, your device should be suitable for the intended purpose. Okay, it should be safe and effective, fair enough. And also acceptable risk when weighed against the benefits. Okay. And then it ends with taking into account the generally accepted or the generally acknowledged state of the art. So here we go again with the wording. What is suitable here? And also safe and effective. When is something safe, right? If you're going to implant a heart valve, you're going to know you're going to have some side effects. So that might be acceptable because otherwise you'll die of heart failure. Right? So how do you know when the risk is acceptable and how do you weigh those benefits? And I'm talking about the clinical benefit of a heart valve, but also risks, right? So risk management also comes along. In GDPR 4, for instance, it talks about risk control management measures, and specifically again mentions the acknowledged state of the art. So, all right. Also, state of the art also helps identify your risk control measure, shapes your risk management. GSPR 8, for instance, and these are just examples, also side effects, right? When are side effects acceptable? How do you know that? Next one, PMS, right? It says about relevant data. Okay, what's relevant? So if you have information, people don't like your box because it's the color green, that might not be relevant. Or if you get new information that, I don't know, that stroke rate increases after implantation, well, that could be relevant information, right? But you should judge that. Also want to call out this one in the annex about clinical evaluation. It talks about alternative treatment options, so you should keep your eye on that. If there are better options available, does your device actually have a place on the market, right? Have you earned it? And the clinical evaluation plan, also again, based on state-of-the-art medicine, is called out. And here then, in terms of in light of the acceptability of the benefit-risk ratio, and that you need parameters for that. Okay, so here you see lots of, let's say, subjective wording that relate to the state of the art and should give meaning to as a manufacturer. Okay. Just a quick slide also maybe on when this created state of the art. I think if you all know, clinical evaluation and risk management are continuous processes. So it cannot be you do a clinical evaluation report or risk management report. You do them once, you put them in a drawer and you're done. No. So state of the art, they need to be updated, and therefore state of the art also need to be updated. One important point here maybe for the people on the call is if you have devices that are still under MDD and you need to go to the MDR for the first time in the transition period, we're already a long time into that, but maybe it's still happening. Please know that the update of this state of the art can take quite some time, right? On the other hand, if you have new devices, in our experience, it can also help you actually. So you can start with a clinical evaluation plan, but the information that you gain from that can maybe also still serve as good input for your design and development process. Once you have it in the SEP, you can finally update it in the clinical evaluation report and then submit it to your notified body. And then in the post-market phase, okay, you can keep updating your state-of-the-art with, for instance, your PMCF activities, right? So this was a little bit on when to create the state-of-the-art. And as we're talking about the medical device regulation, I want to touch upon one key point, and that's the acceptability of the benefit-risk ratio. This is something that you need to do, right? There's no way around it. It's in the MDR. You see some quotes that we give in there on the top. The benefit-risk ratio is, for instance, mentioned GSPR 1 and 8. There it specifically calls out that that the risk should be acceptable when weighed against the benefits. And as also in the text of the annex about how to what should be in a clinical evaluation plan, state-of-the-art is also mentioned. So on the one end of the scale, you have the benefits. You need to know something about your benefits. So you need the state of the art to say something about, okay, what is then the clinical performance that you expect from your device? And clinical performance, but also the clinical benefits that you will eventually have for your patients. And how are you going to measure that? What are the clinical outcome parameters, right? If you do an assessment of the state of the art, what's generally accepted, in cardiac surgery, okay, what's then the clinical performance likely can be from a new valve implant, let's say, just as an example, but also what are the outcome parameters that come along with it. And we'll dive into that a little bit later on in this talk. But that's the benefits. On the other end of the scale, you also have risks. So what are known risks? What are side effects? What are acceptable levels? State of the art can help you define all this. If you have that, answering questions, also I think also in the chat about the GSPRs is maybe a little bit more doable, actually. Right? I also saw a comment in the chat. I don't see that anymore, but it was also more towards the clinical process. So yes, state of the art obviously closely relates to the clinical process. First, in the planning phase, you're going to write a clinical evaluation plan. So there you're going to determine, okay, what are my preliminary clinical, the level of my clinical performance and the level of clinical safety. When you know that, you can also determine, okay, how am I going to evaluate my benefit risk ratio later? Okay. Then go to a clinical evaluation report, and there you will make the conclusions. So in essence, how high do you need to put the bar to earn your place on the market? And it's just not clinical, it's also risk management, the side effects that we had, safety, outcome, severity, whatnot. It relates to PMF, PMCF, because if you know what you're still missing, you can steer your PMCF activities, for instance, or you identify new risks. It can help design development. And on the bottom, and that will be the second half of this talk, is claim management, right? So from state of the art to claim management. All right. So in all, we let's say the concept that we use with our clients is the main elements of state of the art that we build is actually fourfold. We determine the suitability of intended purpose and indication. It's helpful for the definition of the clinical benefits and the clinical outcomes. It helps to define your risk levels, and all that together is actually your basis to assess the benefit risk ratio, right?
Yes,
just said that,
and also, Jelle, these elements that are identified here, I think, are extremely important as a from technical clinical point of view, to realize for the audience that if you're not able to determine these different elements from state of the art and use them towards your design of your device, then it will be really difficult to know what you're aiming at, because it's sort of your big aim. This is what we need to establish. This is what we need to do. And also the question that we have is, are there any additional comments on that, on the theoretical part of state of the art that people would like to share with the group? Is there anybody who would like to speak up? Can they speak up actually? Okay, so if you have any additional questions on this concept of the actual okay, so we have Goldie indicating. Okay, good. We're in agreement, Goldie.
Very nice to hear.
Yeah. So what we're now going to do is actually one step further. We're going to put in an example and discuss based on this example how you can make these 4 elements actionable, because I think that's what we need to do anyway. So Jelle, can you dive into that?
Exactly. So yeah, Rob is perfect. These are the elements that we typically then use. And what we want to share today with the audience is sort of the blueprint that we use on projects with our clients, how we set it up. So first of all, what we want to discuss today is then the example of a heart valve that I already slightly introduced in previous slides. Right, so this heart valve is first of all, what we want to do is determine the suitability of the intended purpose and the indications, right? So what you need to do there is determine, okay, what's the clinical background of all of this? What are the clinical conditions and indications? So we're talking here about people with heart disease, obviously. So this can be heart failure or valve disease. how sick are these patients? What are they? What is their life expectancies? That kind of things. Describe here what are the treatment options. So this could be indeed implantable heart valve, and maybe it's also surgery or just pharmaceuticals. And what are the claims of those treatments, right? Similar devices. So what are competitors doing? But also what are the claims of those competitors? And what are they saying about their device? This is very important for you. As said, you need to earn your place in the market. So this is the threshold that you need to reach. Medical societies here can be very important. These societies publish, as you know, clinical guidelines. What are they saying? And that's more from the clinical perspective, but can also be technical product standards. If you have a device type that's been on the market for a long time, there's a good chance there's a product standard saying maybe what kind of material should use, or maybe what kind of strengths it should have, what kind of all sorts of things. So that would be the first thing to address and put on paper. But secondly, also then, what will your device be doing? So the clinical performance and the clinical benefit. Describe the relevant elements of your design, as I said. So maybe here you see a sort of a 9-mil dressing. Is that important? Or you might want to do it different than your competitors and have a different type of material that's maybe more beneficial to your device design. What are the medical effects? Well, maybe of course you're going to restore here the heart, the blood pressures, the flow, and whatnot. Yeah. But on the other hand, as said, you also need to say something about safety. So what are known or foreseeable side effects? Certainly for heart valve, lots and lots of clinical investigation are out there. So do a literature review. You're probably going to learn something about written disorders, bleedings, infection rates, that kind of stuff. This teaches you what are the side effects and also what rate of side effects is probably acceptable, or at least currently, right? Because that's what you need to know. If 10% infection rate is reported, you cannot come along with 15 or 20% infection rate. This is something that you need to know. If you know all that, I was already getting ahead of myself a little bit. If you know your clinical performance and your risks, you can go into the clinical outcome parameters, right? These will help then, as I just said, about the infection rates, but also maybe how much the blood pressure can be improved, or your life expectancy, how much can be improved. All these kind of things. And finally, then also mention the alternative treatments. You need to say something about alternative treatments. We see these comments coming back from the notified bodies. So how does it relate? If you have a good alternative in your pharmaceuticals or different surgical options, why would you bring a more risky device to market? Right? You need to explain that if you can, or you don't have maybe you don't have a place on the market. Yeah, so if you take all these concepts together, then essentially, so we do what we then do. You have checkmarked all 4 of those main elements that we just said, right? So you determined, okay, my device indeed suited for the as a suitable intended purpose, right? This is the way physicians use this device. You say something about your clinical benefits, but also your risks, and this is then your basis for the benefit-risk ratio, how to determine it. I want to pause here indeed.
Yeah, Jelle, this is nice for for valve.
Yeah.
There's a lot of data out there for valves, but how about we take a different example? How about we talk about crutches?
Indeed.
How am I going to do that for a crutch?
I think that's an important comment indeed. The MDR tends to be a little bit more easily to interpret for class 3 devices, when all these difficult terms can be addressed and maybe easily answered. If you are indeed going to talk about crutches, I think you can still be use the same terminology, fill the same boxes as we highlighted here, but you have to be a little bit more pragmatic, right? So sure, you can explain the clinical background. People need crutches. I think that can be easy to address. Clinical conditions, yeah, that's going to be a wide range of clinical conditions. It can be just a temporary broken bone. Maybe it's more chronic disease. Medical societies can be very helpful here, maybe even insurance companies, right? Clinical performance, yeah, you can be supported by something. I already skipped over product standards. That can be very important here. safety profile, maybe for such a simple device, you're quickly done. So yeah, all in all, I think you can still take this blueprint, but you have to be a little bit more pragmatic. But you can still fill it, and hopefully it will be actually helpful in succeeding in making a nice clinical evaluation in the end.
Yeah. So again, here the SOTA, the gathering of the SOTA data, or being able to perform an analysis of SOTA and all these different elements in early phases of development really helps you towards ensuring that your device will be able to have its place on the market and be accepted also on the market. So if we go one slide further, Jelle, I think. No, actually, are there any comments on this?
Exactly.
Would the people in the audience comment on this?
Or does this help? Maybe problems you've used?
Yeah, I see Goldie is raising her hand.
Thank you, Robert. And we see, I'm also consulting for MedTech startups, and I see breakthrough devices. US pretty straightforward, like you have a guidelines and how it is handled, especially for clinical data. In Europe, I find some challenges, especially with state of the art. So how do you handle breakthrough devices or novel technologies?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you very much. So in principle, it starts with the same basis, because also in the US, if you have a breakthrough device, you need to meet certain requirements. It's not like, oh yeah, it's a beautiful new great, it's so breakthrough. Well, if you really analyze it, it is not. So first of all, you need to define what is it breaking through from. Okay, that sounds a little bit weird, but it means where do you move away from, or what are you going to do differently? But to be able to do that, to quantify that, to define that, you need to establish what is now the currently accepted way of working, or the currently accepted way of treatment, or analysis, or diagnosis, or whatever. And from there, you can start building your storyboard. And that is exactly what is now happening in Europe behind the scenes. They're working on a MDCG guidance document first about an additional or more clarification on how breakthrough devices in Europe can be handled, and also the process around it involving expert panels / notified bodies in earlier phases to ensure that these devices do go to market based on the evidence needed. So, but it all starts with being able to explain what the current the situation is, and then identify what is unique in this new device, either by technology or by type of indications that are being treated, or by the whole patient management going in a different direction. So those you can't do breakthrough device, in my opinion, without having a well and sound analysis of the SOTA for these for the devices that you're trying to put on the market. And also, in the future there might be instead of only having a guidance, there might be some more changes towards these type of processes inside of the MDR, but that's future. We don't know. That's the crystal ball. That's what we keep asking to everybody. So I see Sean have a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that Maria Donawa posted an article this week about similar devices under MDR. I'm putting the link in the chat.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, we saw that too. Thank you. And that's actually the similar devices are a set of devices that you are going to compare yourself with under this SOTA. But it's not all, because you also need to be able to assess, for example, if your device is moving into patient management. That's you might need to look into other types of treatments, like what Jelle indicates, medicinal treatments, or other devices, totally different approaches, etc., etc. So similar is really about, okay, this is what I know, but we think you need to be a little bit wider, or the MDR indicates that you need to be a little wider. So make sure that you do not forget that you only focus on similar. You need to be a little bit wider in your scoping of SOTA. And then you address all the other elements that are required anyway. But it's also good, it makes good business sense to know what you're comparing yourself with. And that helps in the end. And now we make a nice shift towards the next slide.
I see Tracy, sorry, Stephanie wants to be a panelist. Sean, can you maybe add her as a panelist? I guess she has a question. I didn't seem to have that option.
I'm sorry, repeat, please.
Stephanie is in the chat asking to be a panelist.
I'll promote her. Thank you.
Sorry,
she's there.
I just wanted to make a comment on this state of the art. I actually have I'm a consultant. For those of you that don't know me, this whole state of the art argument, I have a real big problem with it because my reviewer is very, very junior and she considers it as best of the best. And we haven't convinced her otherwise. And the problem with this is that the device is very, very innovative. And so there's no comparison. It's actually sort of a new way of clinically managing. So I'm actually prefer, when we're talking about state of the art, that we revert to with really innovative technologies or technologies that handle or manage new clinical conditions or new clinical method of clinical management. I would really prefer that we would be allowed to use the terminology is that this medical device brings some clinical relevance. In other words, either the safety of the procedures improve, for example, or the effectiveness of the treatment improves, or I have
but already, Stephanie,
because we're banging our head against the wall on this one.
Stephanie, already what you are comparing yourself with something.
Yeah,
in your wording that you're using, you're comparing yourself with something. So you need to know what you're comparing against, and then
of course.
Now the processes are being behind the scenes. They're working now on a process to that allows you to argue exactly what you are now saying. And it's not necessarily then state of the art. It's really about breakthrough compared to what is state of the art and what are criteria and how that process can be handled. So I fully concur with you. And if you have apparently you have an assessor of a customer with a notified body that is junior, well, that's different. That's a different discussion. I would call up somebody else within the notified body that you have known from before, but that's just a personal opinion there, and that's now on camera forever. Okay. So
thank you.
So if we dive into the next session, which is the last. Sorry,
I see a hand raised by hopefully Piet or Piet. I hope.
So I was in the Q&A box, and there is someone anonymously asking, do we need to look at all data from all similar devices for a device? If you can also check the Q&A box.
I had actually had exactly that problem with the reviewer, is that she wanted us to compare all data from all devices. Yeah. But that wasn't from me, this comment.
No, but it's a very useful comment, actually. Jelle, any thoughts on this?
Well, what I did with one client in the past was there was a long list of similar devices, but in essence, maybe there were 2, 3, 4 main competitors holding, let's say, 75, 80% of the market, something like that. So what I argued was actually, well, if I just investigate these 3, 4 devices, I will have the bulk of what are the clinical benefits, the clinical performance, but also maybe more important, what are the clinical risks, what are the foreseeable side effects. And with that, I argued, okay, well, with generated knowledge, what we already spoke about, this is my landscape. I can compare with only these 4. And in the end, that was accepted. So, yeah, maybe it takes a little bit of back and forth, but I think it was a fair argument, a fair rationale. Yeah, that would be one solution. Robert, what do you think?
No, but I think it's a very fair question. Of course, it's not doable to do everything, but and also we had some discussions also with other people and also internally. Do we need to do a full literature search already to determine SOTA?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question, of course, and we saw some of that coming back in a certain clinical evaluation standard that's currently under development. So yeah, what the practical approach here is what is indicated. Are you leaving out in potentially information from devices that are not identified as the big three? In the example that Jelle said, yeah, there's this risk. Yeah, what can you do on it? Not a lot, but you need to build a good storyboard. And if you can really say, okay, this is how we are going to handle that, that should make sense. So, Tracy?
Hi, yeah, sorry, apologies because I did join late. I may have missed it, but I can I think probably just add some more comment and just, I suppose, some example or some weight to what you've already said, just from my experience. So I was contracting with Abbott for 5 years through essentially from 2020 through to the end of last year, and actually led the team that submitted over 50 technical files for IVDs in the infectious disease area that were approved, and another 20 that were still going through as I left. So substantial amount of experience of, well, it felt like hundreds of reviewers. I don't think it was quite that many, but there were certainly quite a few file reviews that went on for more than 2 years and had multiple reviewers on them. So we had the challenge of having to work through that quite often with different kind of takes on things. We took, I think, probably a kind of best in class, because Abbott was an early adopter. So we started, obviously, well, Abbott started before I joined, but we were already submitting files from 2020. And so took a best in class approach to SOTA, kind of actually dedicating, I'd say, probably a month's work just to that one report as a sub part of the clinical performance report. And actually, in doing so, we were never questioned on the methodology or the actual content of it, because it was given so much time. And I think crucially, what we learned was that it was in an IVDR submission, which I appreciate is probably everyone's more MDR here, but I expect it should be the same really in the majority of cases. It is about the storytelling and it's about the linkages. So if you have to know what your story is across your submission in its entirety before you start to do your state of the art, although your state of the art needs to be done at the beginning. You have to therefore consider and select based on what you're going to do in terms of what you're going to show for your risk management, what you're going to show in your clinical performance in terms of reference product, devices used, etc., etc. You have to show that woven and stemming from the state of the art assessment. It's kind of, we, for example, always had a section on clinical guidelines. We always had a section, that was a literature review. We actually had the issue where our devices were well-established technology in some respects, like HIV devices, or on the other hand, devices that were in the end, novel when they came through as COVID flu, for example, in the midst of the pandemic. So, but I think if you set out knowing what you are trying to achieve, what that core message is, whether it's well-established technology or it's novel and it's better, equal to, etc. And in a lot of cases, these devices were long established and certainly not of the latest technology even. And we did not shy away from that. We very much alluded, or actually spoke through robustly what was available in terms of all different technology. But ultimately coming back to the fact that the lateral flow device, as it was, had a very clear place in the diagnostic pathways.
And therefore,
progress.
because it's still part of that
Yeah.
it still has its place.
Absolutely.
It is
So I think
part of the state of the art. So
yeah,
thank you very much for
absolutely.
that feedback, Tracy.
That's okay.
Carrie, I see you also are holding up your hand. I do have one last item I'd like to go through, but Carrie, we can answer your question first.
Yeah,
Or-
I just like to go quick too. I had probably one of the first technical files cleared in the EU for medical device. And the reviewers are very young when it comes to it and they argue it. And so as long as you're very clear, the EU MDR 2017 uses state of the art multiple times, but it doesn't define it. For example, in Annex 1 on general safety and performances, but it does not provide a formal definition. And so when the reviewers kind of come at you, as long as you hold your ground with it and clearly define it. I only had 5 questions come back from the formal reviewers on my first one. Medical Device Coordination Group also explicitly listed along with it again, but it doesn't formally define it in the MDR. ISO 14971 2019 definition adopts it by the regulators and the notified body. Clause 328 of ISO 14971 2019 defines state of the art as developing the stage of current technical capability and or accepting clinical practice in regard to products, processes, and patient management based on relevant consolidation, finding science, technology, and experience. And a note adds that the state of art embodies what's currently and generally accepted as good practice. It does not necessarily imply the most technologically advanced solutions. And I dare you to challenge your reviewers with that again. It's clinical. It's your clinical.
So that's what we try to bring across during the first part of the presentation. Really, that be sure that exactly those type of discussions are very openly, done with it. That you take the opportunity with the notified body to have that discussion. But we also experience, and probably you too, Carrie, and the other people here, that while the years were going on, the consensus and the understanding got a little bit better on state of the art and how the storyboards can be written. We can see on all sides that they are learning. Still, they are hiring new ones, like Stephanie indicated, and you have to go through the struggle again. So we can only hope that in the near future this will be also on the agenda of notified bodies to get a little bit better aligned. And maybe there's people listening in now.
Like you have there on your slides.
Okay, so let's go to the last section. If everybody's okay with that, because we haven't talked about the claims yet, but the claims actually we did talk about, because we by now, if we've done the SOTA analysis, we also know what is happening in this field that we are targeting, and we know what the other similar alternative devices are doing actually. And so you can actually learn also there what claims are out there. They can be clinical claims, they can be technical claims, and all sorts of types of claims are out there. And what we find is that ensuring that you know what's being claimed helps you also to talk internally with them cowboys from marketing. Because the cowboys from marketing, they are always talking about that your device is the most brilliant one, or your IVD is performing most effectively, etc., etc. So then if you come back with a question, and what does that mean, and can you quantify it? Then they start stuttering, and we need to find a solution for that. So in the view of SOTA, can we implement claim assessment also there? And later on, of course, claim management, because whatever we can prove is what we can prove, and not all the other things that might come out of the pipeline of them cowboys from marketing. Make sure that the claims that the marketing or the business really wants to be part of your devices are being assessed also on, first of all, feasibility, but also on how does that relate to what is out there in the market. Okay. And of course, we wrote down here a couple of examples, and there's a lot of ways eventually to prove and support these claims. And although there, for example, in the MDR, it doesn't say specifically something on claims other than you cannot make claims that cannot be substantiated. But in our opinion, it is something that is an integral part of your development anyway, because it's real life. Make sure that you use those claims and that you make sure that you have the evidence to support them, because again, the notified bodies do look at it from different angles, actually, during your initial assessment, but also later on when they come back for an audit. Next slide, please. So if you look very carefully, somewhere here you can find state of the art. We tried our very limited and probably deficient way of presenting what some of the processes are that are being activated once you go to design and development, or actually also before that. And the state of the art is something that is happening, should be happening early phases, and preferably even before initiated before the design and development, so that there's a good storyboard also for the design group to work on and translate that into the required design inputs. And eventually, these devices will go to the market. You will get your clearance. I heard 2 years or more. It is actually improving, although the numbers don't show it, because the numbers that the European competent authorities are publishing are not looking into is it getting better. It's just still all the way back in from the past, unfortunately. But it is getting better. Experiences are that there is more responsiveness, there's more capacity. In some notified bodies, people are actually waiting for work. So let's stuff them with our dossiers. So if we go to the next slide, you can also see in the post-market phases, state of the art isn't ending. Because one of the, you will be stupid as a company if you are not looking into what your competitors are doing, what they are placing on the market, how those devices are performing. Of course, your own device also, but how do you relate to these new devices coming into the market? Can you still make that benefit risk evaluation ratio claim, whatever we're going to call it? So you need to also include in your activities, your methods that are forming your post-market surveillance. You need to put in something there on how are we going to assess what is happening in the market? What is now the state of the art compared to when we looked at it last time? Maybe the last time was the first time, and how is it going to evolve? Because there's a lot of new technology coming out, and we have been talking so far only on hardware and IVDs, but there's also software and AI, and things are basically exploding on that side. So we need to be very aware that the SOTA never ever stops. It's an integral part, and it drives your PMS, and the rest of these processes are then again driven by the input coming out of PMS. Yeah, I think we have one more slide, right?
Yeah, the takeaways.
Yeah, summarizing slide, I think. Yeah. Oh, messages. Yes, that's also a nice way to say it. Okay. So state of the art. It's not necessarily the most technologically advanced solution, as also indicated by Carrie just now and by Tracy. It is really what is currently and generally accepted as good practice in technology and medicine, but then specifically for your group or device itself. Okay, so that you are in control there. You determine what you want to fit in, where do you want to fit in, and that's your storyboard, basically. So how to do it, how to structure it, that depends on you. But please take into consideration those elements that we just showed you in one of the slides that Jelle presented. That really can help you to make sure that you have touched on all the different elements that not only the notified body asks you to be aware about, but also your business might be very much interested in. Yeah, so again, the depth, the detail, it can differ. It definitely fits within clinical. It definitely fits in risk management, but it also drives the development of technology and the use. Claim management, same thing here. It is in the way that we see it, it should be part of your SOTA assessment while you're investigating the market and you see what your competitors are doing, see how they make claims and how you can make them measurable and what evidence you have available. Yeah, I think this is sort of summarizing from our perspective, SOTA and how it integrates in different processes, but also is driven by business obligations and business expectations. And looking forward to hear from you guys if there are any remaining questions left.
I saw one comment, Robert. Oh, sorry,
Yeah, okay.
from Piet, and I think it's also that a source of state-of-the-art on standards as ISO, IEC,
Oh, yeah.
EN, and well, simply put, I fully agree with it. It was also in the first text box, and yeah, you can use these documents as well.
All right, okay.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
very good. Thank you, Bill.
So
I see somebody waving. Oh, that's Sean.
so my
Yeah.
question is, I've heard the term fit for purpose tossed around, and I'm wondering if there's any relationship or if there's any definition of that term, and if so, how that relates to state of the art.
I have some thoughts on that, but I'm not sure whether there is a formal definition in any of the regulations. Maybe the room here can help us out. But the fit for purpose is very much linked, of course, to, in essence, in the wording already. Although not being trained on English, by native language, but it feels the same. I know it's emotions, it's regulations, don't do emotions, but fit for purpose really is, okay, what are you going to do with it on your device itself? But the state of the art might be a little bit bigger, meaning, okay, and what is the rest of the world doing with these type of devices, or not the world, but the actual users. So maybe somebody else has some thoughts on this, fit for purpose.
I think that sounds right.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Good.
I think fit but for purpose for me sort of matches more instruments, and a clinical relevant outcomes would be, more of the device side. I don't know. It's just, I guess, a thing of wording. I really like the wording of just saying, it's clinically relevant outcomes, in terms of safety, or effectiveness, or performance. I prefer that much to the state of the art, because we have ongoing discussions now for 2 years, and this reviewer just doesn't let go. It's like a dog's holding onto the pant leg at the bottom, and it's just driving me crazy, I have to tell you. And I've heard all the other things, but if you have a junior reviewer and she's very convinced of herself, you just can't get rid of the dog biting your pant leg. Sorry.
I may want to comment on that. I mean, that's our regulatory people's biggest challenge. People not understanding or does not have an openness to understand your technology. What has worked for me is not the conflict. So the sooner you neutralize the conflict, sooner you make them realize that you understand them, it's like the tension kind of drops. So it's more of a mental game with them than the actual performance data that you need to convince them with. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I've worked with lots of reviewers, but this is the toughest one. And it's gone so far to the point that she's recommending to us which tables she wants to see and have. We've escalated it. We've escalated it. We've escalated it, and the escalation response, we've never gotten one.
Okay.
within the notified body. So
I would name the notified body. So BSI, actually the escalation did not go well for us. One of my client, reviewer actually complained against the company to say they have not treated her well.
Okay.
And BSI supported their own reviewer, not the company.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
personally feel the energy doesn't
Yeah.
need to be escalated like that. It just like doesn't go anywhere once it got
No,
escalation.
and again, if you
I've
do
had a
get
similar
some of
experience,
these type of comments coming back from a notified body, and you see and you feel okay, they're not understanding. They're I don't know if you've done probably you've done it, Stephanie, but this structured dialogue, you can also, it's nice wording, but in the end it means sitting down either electronically or in person and talk through these and come up with a proposal and make sure that your proposal makes sense and see if you can then come to a concession where not only that review is there, but typically there's also the expert involved that can you can have some discussion there. But again, it is difficult.
I agree
it
with
remains
you.
difficult.
Yeah. I thank you, Robert, for mentioning that.
Yeah.
We have, and the problem is that she has a very set way in which she wants to have it, but she doesn't tell us. So then word comes the word she can't consult, but she has a very set way in her head on how
Yeah.
she wants to have it, and we haven't figured out what exactly is her set way that she really wants to have it. And yeah, and it's
It's difficult.
it's very
Wrap
difficult.
up.
Anyways.
Yeah.
It's a human factor to this, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sean, do we do one last question from Anush and then wrap up?
Yeah, that's fine.
Actually, I don't have a question, just a comment.
Oh, okay.
If you have reviewers or auditors that don't serve the purpose, actually, there are two steps. You can try to educate them on your innovative device. That's what I've done on medical devices that are one of its kind, like an implant, an active neuro implant that makes blind people see again. You don't find notified bodies that are aware of how to consult or how to approve such a device. On the other hand, if you find that they're capable of going along, you can educate them, and you can build this together to make it actually a viable medical device for the market and improve quality of life for blind patients. Then
And that's what
okay.
it's about.
If you find that the notified body is not good enough, then you actually have to change it. That is what I've done in the past. Just switch the notified body, and you can have different notified bodies. One for quality management, the other for actually approval of medical devices. So I'm sure you're aware of that, and that's the way to go along. If that young auditor or reviewer that you are actually having trouble with is not doing the job right, you have to change that person.
Yeah,
and
I think it's very fair what you're saying, Anush, but I also want to be a little bit supportive here because we should not only complain about the things that do not go right, because a lot of things are going right with notified bodies. So we need to give them also some credit here. And the ones that do not go right, of course, take out, because that's as usual with these type of things. So yeah, again, I think we all need each other, and it's all for the best, patient care eventually. And that's also something they are definitely realizing, but that they are also under pressure from their authorities. If they, for example, miss out on certain elements that they get scrutinized or hammered later, then they might lose part of their designation or all of it. And that's also not in the best interest of. So we need to be supportive. I like, Anush, what you're saying. We actually educate them along, and that's, if you have a unique technology, that's what you need to do anyway. And that's why SOTA is their comfort zone. They should know their SOTA. I don't know if you ever read Annex 7 in detail, but it actually says, not in these type of work, but they also need to be aware of SOTA. They need to know what's the type of devices that are out there and how they're performing. It's part of their obligations too. So if you touch on that, one, then it really would help to build your story, as Carrie indicated, for example. So
sure.
Yeah.
Read
Sean.
Yes.
I just put it in the post chat what you need to do to satisfy what they're asking for. If you answer those, use those, you'll be fine, and then they'll go away.
I love all the collaboration, all the
That's your
input
fix. Sorry.
today. Carrie, thank you for providing a detailed explanation in writing. It's
I think,
so, yeah, I think that we need to wrap things up.
yeah,
but
we can do another discussion later.
I mean, that's one of the things I love about this call is that it is an opportunity to be collaborative, to build a story together. And let's see. Carrie, it starts with notified bodies when they use the phrase fit for purpose, or what? No, you said you posted it below. Provide the following, and they're satisfied. It didn't show.
It
So
didn't show, so it's up above, notified bodies. So they want to see what, for fit for purpose, they mean the evidence package for the technical documentation, risk management, clinical evaluation, and PMS data.
okay, I'm
So
gonna post it to everyone.
are you going to put it up so they can all see it? That's what they want to see.
Posted it to everyone.
Okay.
Okay, well, we can follow up with this. I want to thank everybody for their time, as always. I want to thank the speakers, Robert and Jelle, for their patience on the flub. Still working on transferring to a different platform, but time takes time. I'm going to be reporting live from Rome next week. Exciting, as I'm going to have a roundup at the end of Team PRRC, what we learned, what the key takeaways are, and we're going to have two very special guests from Create, a regulatory consulting group that's developing AI to help assist people with regulatory affairs people with their work. I met them at RAPS. They're very interesting to talk to. I just had a call with them. Excited about that, and I think that the following Friday, the speaker is Michelle Wu from Nyquist AI, which is coming at this problem from a very, very different perspective, more in terms of global regulatory tracking. And what's interesting about Nyquist is they have access to China and Japan data that other people don't have. So if you're interested in global regulatory, follow that. I have a number of new projects, new opportunities coming up. There are 3 webinars before the end of the month. Next week, there's going to be a nice investor thing from Lean Rocca on the 23rd, 22nd, 23rd. I posted that in the chat. Then there's going to be EIFU with Acra Team, and after that, this very, very cool new program that we started, which is matching 5-day email courses with webinars. So the clinical program that we're doing with Donowa Life Science, what you need to know to initiate pre-market clinical trials in the EU on the whatever date that is, the 29th, the 30th, I can't remember. You're also going to get enrolled in an email course, which comes over 5 days. So it takes the curriculum from the webinar, expands it, and provides more detail. So this is an interesting new thing. And then the last thing I wanted to leave you with is that for 2026, and this is stealth mode here. MedTech Leading Voice Exchange is launching monthly country-specific, like 360-degree view of the medtech market in Ireland or Italy or the Netherlands. And it's going to be an excellent opportunity to involve people with in-country expertise to get a full picture of what's going on. What's going on in Italy right now, in terms of clinical, in terms of startups, in terms of what's the market like, what does contract manufacturing look like? What does distribution look like? How does it work? I want to go do business in Italy. How am I going to do it? Right. And I think that provides an interesting opportunity for more collaboration, more input, more speakers. So I encourage you to keep that in mind and reach out to me if you would like to be involved in the planning of any of these or have any recommendations for which countries we start with. Because I'm starting with Italy, right? I mean, you know me, and you know that my ultimate goal in life is to retire to a villa in Italy some point in the near future. So there we go. Thank you all. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Jelle.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone who contributed and who is here, which is a contribution in and of itself. Remember that. You've already done a great thing today. Please help us spread the word. Feel free to contact me directly with speaker recommendations or other comments. Anyone who had trouble getting in today, I apologize. I, again, hope to get all my technical problems solved in the near future, and I thank you all. Cheers.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Happy weekend.
Thanks. Bye.